Hey, I'm Chris Eischen, and this is the Modern Dad Council. Joining me today is Jay40 from the Greatness Zone and ReadyForLife.me, and Eric Lehman of the Game Changer Movement, and Tommy Maloney of Blending the Family. And joining us soon, hopefully, will be Thomas Pfeiffer of the Good Men Project, but due to technical difficulty, he's not here right now. But the Modern Dad Council meets to discuss important issues related around parenting, relationships, and everything else in the world around being a modern dad. So today we're discussing vision. This is a pretty awesome topic to discuss. So if you're a little confused on what vision means, I'm excited to have you on the show watching, because this is a really powerful step in being an awesome dad, or a super dad, or a kick-ass dad, or stepping up into life as the best version of yourself. So the reason that this topic came up for me is that I have this vision in my life, but every once in a while we need to kind of check in with ourselves in reality and see, where are we in our path towards that vision. And oftentimes, one of the things a few years ago that I found was that I was way off the path of the vision that I saw for myself. So my vision was, I saw myself as having this type of a life once I reached a certain age. I had mental goals for myself. But kind of life happened, and I allowed life to happen to me. So I was very much living a reactive life instead of responsive life, being responsible and choosing how to show up to those moments instead of allowing those moments to affect where I went and how I did things. And so I wasn't living the life of my vision. And so I had to take a look at myself and say, hey, what is it that I'm not doing that I need to be doing, to reach that goal, or to live that vision? And so I started to head down that path, which was a path that wasn't already there, that wasn't created for me, but one that I had to decide that I wanted and move down on my own. And luckily I started down that path, and lo and behold, I run into a bunch of other people that are having that same vision for their lives. And that's these people that are here with me today: Tommy Maloney, Jay40, Eric Lehman, and Thomas Pfeiffer when he gets on. So it's amazing once you start to head down that journey, or to fulfill your vision for yourself and for your life, all the people that you meet that have similar ideas or goals. But like I was saying, sometimes you need to do a little checkup and say, okay, where am I in my vision? And am I doing all that it takes to fulfill my vision to its fullest, right? Living 100%. And then if you're not, or there's areas that you can improve on, making those adjustments and moving through those. So Jay, I want to put you on the spot first, just because you seem to be rubbing your chin. I see some thoughts on this subject in that head of yours. So do you mind kind of sharing with us a little bit about your perspective and feeling about vision?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in, and you guys kid me all about my family meetings, but I grew up in a really focused Italian family that always was insistent on us knowing where our vision was. I mean, we spent a lot of time as kids working through New Year's resolutions, and those are just mini versions of visions. What is going to happen this year? And if you don't say it and choose it, then why would you leave any of that up to luck, which is what a lot of people do. So we just had the discipline, I think, of saying what we wanted in life, and then understanding that, to get anywhere, you have to be clear about where it is that you're headed. And so the awareness about what you want is a big topic of discussion. How do you know what it is that you want, and how are you then listening to whether it's you that's talking or the loud voices around you that's talking, pushing you into being something that's not really for you? So I think there's two parts to it, and we use the same thing in the corporate world. When you think about strategy, there's always the clear definition of where are we headed. So that's our goal. In fact, use the wisdom of Stephen Covey, right? Start with the end in mind. What is it that you want to go to and get there? Then the next question is, so where am I? And that then creates the distance for you to say, what do I need to do to go from where I am to where I need to be? And I guess, so to me, there's two parts. One is know that it's just a process. And then the other part is know that you have to have integrity in the components of your process. Is your vision true to who you are, or is it somebody else's vision for you? And are you not authentic or accurate about where you really are, so that the steps that you make are not from where you are but some other place, and therefore you will never achieve what you want to achieve. So to me, I think the intellectual side of me says it's really just enacting a process, but the emotional or the spiritual side of me says, well, are you clear about what it is that you're trying to deliver on? Put the two together, and I think there's some way to go ahead and get the things that you want in life instead of watch them pass you by.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty spot on. Hi, Thomas. Welcome.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Pfeiffer.
Oh, great. He's got a voice.
Yes, I'm here, and I can hear you, so here we are.
Perfect. So we're talking about vision. Jay just shared. Does anybody else want to jump in here?
Sure. Well, I mean, when I think about vision and looking forward and making a plan or developing things in your life and achieving goals, the first thing I try to strip away is the limits we place on ourselves that we aren't even aware that we're placing on ourselves. Because if we come from a certain mindset, or a certain mindset has been drilled into us that certain things are not possible, that we can't ever be this or that, that we're just not cut out for that, whatever it is, then we can't be that, because until we believe that we can do it, we're not going to do it. So I encourage people to look at what are the limits you're placing on yourself. You know, oh, I can't work from home because A, B, and C, or I can't do this because A, B, and C. It's always I can't do this. It's not the right time to do this. So looking at all those self-limiting behaviors and saying, well, what if that problem was taken away? Or what if I could do it differently? Or just imagine, you know, that I might be able to do it differently, and start to peel those things away, and then think about life in terms of what is possible, what I could really do. And then, you know, look to other people. Look at examples of other people who went through obstacles that were much greater than whatever it is that we're facing that we think is stopping us from getting to where we want to be.
It reminds me of that story about the first person to run the 4-minute mile. Was it
Dr. Reinhard Bannister?
Bannister, right. He before him, nobody had ran a 4-minute mile. After he broke that record, you had all kinds of people breaking it. So it's definitely where your perspective is, or where you're coming from. To
Chris, can I add something? And just in context of dads, you know, there's an awful lot of stuff that we take as true as a dad that isn't necessarily true, but we've been listening to it for a while, or we've let the world tell us how to be, who to be, and all this stuff. And so I think to Tom's point is, you know, how do we challenge any of the things so that we look at what's possible instead of what's not possible? And that really means being capable of looking at what's true and challenging some beliefs that we carry forward that many times we haven't even done our work to see whether we truly believe them, but they still come along and they are riding on we go, and until we unseat them and say, you know, I get that's what I used to do, but now with clear thinking, I don't want that anymore, or that's not for me, or that's not what I'm going to do, and not the way I'm going to raise my kids.
Tommy, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I mean, Jay brings up a great point, because I remember, you know, when I was a stay-at-home dad, and my former wife kept telling me I wasn't going to be successful at it because, you know, I was an only child, I didn't babysit, and all that other malarkey. And, you know, I look at where I've come with my son. Matter of fact, he's going through hockey tryouts right now, and his mom told me that she was still going to be there yesterday and she could take him home. And I said, well, let's leave that up to our son. And I was on cloud nine when he said, can you take me home after tryout? So, to Jay's point about thinking from the end, you always look at the dark side, but once you get a little bit of glimmer, a little bit of light, then everything else can start falling into place. And if you just have a little bit of a positive mindset, again, with my son going through hockey, the thing I keep reminding him is before you go to bed, visualize making those saves, visualize being in the right place. And vision can also be like a, what do they call it, the mind's eye type thing as well.
Seeing what you want in your reality.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Eric, did you want to jump in here? I know you're driving. Can you hear us, Eric? All right. Well, never mind then.
Chris, I'll add one more. I've just seen this lately, and it just was new terminology for me, so let me throw it out to you guys and see what you think. So it was around the concept of mindfulness. Could we actually pay attention? So it's everything we're talking about, right? Could we be present enough to see what is it that we always do versus what is it that we want to do? And the words that I heard that I really liked were, we have what's called biased attention or free attention. Thomas, you might heard this before. The biased attention is all the junk that we carry forward. It doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It just means it's already framing the way we're going to look at something. So we look at, when I was doing an exercise with a class with this, and I showed the pictures of Oprah, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Miley Cyrus. You can't help but look at those four and have some kind of biased attention. And the idea is, could you notice that you are noticing that? That you notice that you have a bias. That's all. And so when you look at you as a parent, and when you look at your vision for parenting, could you see that there's a bias in there because of what the world wants and expects of you? So, Tommy, when you were talking about being a stay-at-home dad, when the rest of the world might have said, that's just not what we do, then we all start looking at it as, well, all of a sudden this is now off the table. It's not an option. And what free attention does is it says, could I just look at everything and just say it's information? I don't have to be emotionally connected to it. I don't have to love it or hate it. I don't have to use it or not use it. Can I just notice it? Oh, there are some dads that stay at home. I don't have to say I like it or I hate it. There are just some dads who stay at home and manage kids at home. And in that, it creates an opportunity for us to have other options that we wouldn't have allowed ourselves with the biased attention. Does that make sense, or am I running back into the textbooks here?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we make so many assumptions about other people, and when we compare ourselves to other people, I had my boys and I were invited over for dinner last night to a friend's family for the Jewish New Year. And the dad works at a company, and I think he's got a nice house, and I figure he's happy and he's got his job and all that, and he's successful. But he's telling me, God, there are these things I hate about my job, and this has changed, and now it's more corporate, and it's this, and I'm dealing with all this crap and this BS and everything. And he's asking me about my writing and all these other things. And I don't know if he was looking to change anything, but just the assumptions that you make about people's lives on the surface, and you think, oh, their life is better than mine or happier than mine, or they don't have the issues or problems I have, 90% of the time we're wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I actually want to piggyback to that because I was at a conference this week, and for the past 5 days, and the very first day we had to find somebody that we had friction with, that immediately when we saw them, we made a judgment. And it was like, I don't really want to be partners with this person, And by the end of the 5 days, it's like you love that person to death. But what's so crazy is I've done 2 of these workshops, and both times we had to do a very similar exercise, and both times what I found was the more I got to know that person, the more and more I found that we had in common. So although I visually saw somebody as somebody I was nothing like. You know, this person's nothing like me, and I don't want to be anything like them, and I don't even want to get to know them. But then I get to know them, and I'm like, holy smokes, I see there's so much of me in you.
Mhm.
There's something there that, you know, maybe I'm mirroring some of that resistance of myself. Does that make sense?
It makes too much sense. You know, I'm just kind of I'm wondering what the lesson is. Like, you know, when we are feeling as though there's some repulsion or resistance, you know, is our first idea is avoidance, right? But what if we like dove right into that mess? You know, what if we just said, "Oh, cool, like, you know, I can't stand you right now," which probably means that there's something I can't stand about me that's in you that I'm seeing. And so I feel like that's it's a really amazing thing. And I guess I just wanted to, you know, while the connection is really good, I wanted to also just like share about, you know, what vision is to me, and so much has like shifted over the past 48 hours, and I'm so grateful for this topic because I used to feel, or I mean I still feel, that my main vision is just be present, like just get present. And so just to really share in a hugely transparent way, yesterday was the 25-year anniversary of getting kicked out of my my biological mom's house. And it was a really powerful day. It was just, there's a lot of remembrance. There's a lot of, you know, highs and lows that I hadn't really considered in a long time. And then what happened for me is that I learned that there was a set of memories and a set of beliefs that went along with those memories and events that were really getting in the way of me actually being present. And it was one of the most, like, I've never felt lighter in my life, or, you know, in my, I don't know, in the past 30 years, I don't remember feeling this light. And so it's almost like, you know, that movie Inside Out is like when we figure out what's in the way of us being present, you know, that's when the universe just, you know, once we get present, that's when everything shows up. That's when the Modern Dad Council shows up. That's when, you know, we're going to hit the resonance and know that the universe is on our team, wanting all of our dreams to come true. So, and I feel like, you know, I'm in this zone, like, and I was so compelled to join this show, even though I'm driving to a conference that I'm ecstatic about. And so, like, now I'm in this zone of, like, I am actually present for the first time in 30 years. Now what? You know, like, and now I'm so excited about the now what. And there's no limits on the now what. You know, it can be anything. And I feel like that's maybe what Jay was talking about with, like, the unbiased attention. So I just feel like it's amazing what happens when you take the time to actually learn how to get present. And, you know, some of that is by getting present with people who mirror, you know, just to get back to your point, Chris, like, you know, who mirror the things that you can't stand about yourself back to you. So, I mean, the process of getting present, I mean, we sort of touched on this a few weeks ago. I mean, we could spend hours as the Modern Dad Council talking about, you know, different strategies for how to get present. But it's just, I'm amazed, and I'm, like, so grateful for the technology that allows me to be driving and participating in this at the same time. I'm just, like, mind-boggled.
That's awesome. And
So I want to pick up on something Eric just said and about being present, and think about this in terms of the way we communicate with, let's say, people we've had troubled or tortured relationships with, an ex-partner or something like that. So we come to the table or the conversation, and we're immediately relating to that person as we have known them. We're relating to the arguments that we've had in the past, to the conflicts that we've had in the past. We're bringing all of that in the moment. So we're really pulling the past in. And so we're only going to repeat those patterns with that other person if we're already primed to repeat the pattern and to be triggered and to be biased against, you know, whatever the person says, or not taking it seriously. And it's really hard, but if you can sit in the present moment and just listen to what the other person is saying and take it at face value and say, well, okay, that's interesting. You know, I don't have to agree with it, but I'm not going to be predisposed to just shut it down. You know, you might actually be able to have a more productive conversation, you know, engagement or relationship with that person.
Tommy, did you want to jump in on that?
Well, I was just, when Eric was talking about mirroring, you know, I know not everybody saw the video you shared today about the parents.
Here, let me. Why don't I just play it real quick?
Oh, okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Because you said that, and I was like, that's brilliant. I should just. Whoops. Can you guys see this?
Here we go.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
Don't know how to talk to you, just know how to say goodbye. Go back where you came from. Learn to speak English. Go back where you came from.
This right here, whew.
Yeah.
Oh. So,
I mean, it goes back to the whole vision point. Is, you know, to bring it, as Jay was saying, bring back as a dad. I mean, you know, our kids are watching us, and they're gonna see how we react towards other people. They're gonna see how we, you know, respond to our spouses and significant others, and we're gonna see, you know, that whole vision is, you know, if you really want to think from the end, is we want to have kids that grow up and are going to be, you know, positive in society and are going to be, you know, doing good things. And so the vision in my mind is, you know, the way I, you know, am out in public is the way I want my son to see me. You know, and I know I've talked about this before, but especially with the girls, they think I'm nuts because I'll talk to anyone and everyone, except on a plane. I will not talk to people on a plane. That is my own personal space. That is my personal bubble. I'm there to sleep. Okay. For the most part, you know, I have no problems talking to anybody and everybody, and so I think it's a good, you know, a little bit of a life lesson there. But at the same time, that video represents what our kids are seeing us doing and what we should be doing versus being, you know, ignoring things such as that. So thanks for playing for that video, Chris. That helped.
You know, the big thing that comes to mind when I see that one, Chris, is the mindfulness on the what is it that I want to have happen. So to me, I guess when I'm thinking of vision, I'm thinking of intention. Mm-hmm. And I think that the biggest thing that I got in watching that video was mindlessness. You know, the fact that parents can just get sucked in. We as parents can get just sucked into whatever the loudest mob voice turns into. You know, we get inundated with all this yak around us. I mentioned this in a podcast and a blog a little while ago. George Saunders had this wonderful essay that he wrote called The Brain Dead Megaphone, where, you know, we're this audience that whoever seems to have the megaphone, or sometimes we call it the microphone, you know, no matter what they say, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. We hear it, we think it's true, and off we go. So we just start doing back the things that we've heard. So to me, vision says, do I choose how I go forward in whatever it is that I do? do I have a vision for parenting? Do I have a vision for work? Do I have a vision for life? And it isn't to be overly analytical about it, but it's to be very intentional about it. I mean, this is a big thing that we have as parents. This is a big thing that we have as work, and it's a big thing that we have as life. And couldn't we mean it instead of not mean it? And I think the biggest thing that vision helps us do is to mean it. You know, what do you want to have happen here? And the alignment of our kids to their greatest abilities, or to the alignment of, you know, love and kindness instead of, meanness and some of the other things that, greed and the rest of some of the other things that we always constantly see. How then do we build into our day that that's who we're going to be? That our vision is we see this in ourselves, and therefore we're doing it to model it to our kids. But everything we're doing because we stopped and we thought about it and we meant it and we do it. Instead of, I rolled out of bed and here's what happened.
Right, so it's like, I love how you said intention. So it's getting out of bed with a goal for how that day is going to look for you.
Right.
Right? And so how you're going to take each moment. So, kind of to bring in what Eric was talking about with being present, is it's, okay, this is the life that I see for myself and the life that I want to live. And in order to live that life, I need to be present to the opportunities that show up. Because you can have a plan for a day. You can have a schedule all planned out of exactly what you're going to do. And you can be a robot and go through that list. Or you can be present and experience every moment within that list and actively creating that vision that you have set out for the day. And it might not actually look the way that you may expect it to look.
Could be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, just think about the last time you approached anything with intention. Where you said, when I pick my kid up from school today, I'm not going to ask him about his homework assignment. I'm not going to immediately start with the negative stuff or the responsibilities. I'm just going to bond with him and relate to him, whatever it is. And we've all done that at times. Instead of
without apology too.
Yeah.
I want to tap that in there because I gotta. So sorry. Go ahead.
So but we try it and then we backslide and then we say we're going to go back to it again. But the more we can approach these things with intention, that gives us the power to change the quality of the interaction, to change the quality of the day. So we're not just stumbling through it like a robot, or not just falling back on whatever the easiest pattern is. And that's when we can begin to implement our vision. And I think another roadblock to that is we have this sense of, well, isn't it kind of selfish or arrogant to have a vision for? I mean, who am I to have a vision for my life? I've got responsibilities. I got to go to work. I got to pay the bills. I got to this. What vision? This is for people who've got tons of money and tons of time or whatever. But we can make huge differences on the smallest level by having that vision and implementing that vision, whether it's changing the mood of your kid when you pick him or her up after school, or having a different interaction at home, or doing something different with your partner or whatever. The results and the impact of those results can be enormous.
Mm-hmm. Well, even at the workplace, right? So, I mean, I don't think, do any of us have like typical 9-to-5 jobs? I don't know. But looking back at like my job at General Motors, is I had to take a conscious effort to show up every day in the way that was authentic to who I was, instead of living, doing what everybody else, walking down the hallway with my head down. It's like, I don't want to live in that type of a world. This is the vision for the world that I see and that what I want to have in my life. So I'm going to step into that, and I'm not going to shy away or shrink when I come up to resistance, because this is what I want for my life. And so I'm going to go for it 100%. no, I'm sorry if this offends you, kind of a thing. This is who I am, and I'm showing up, and you take it or leave it. And my point there is, like, yesterday my girlfriend posted a picture of me on Facebook that a lot of people thought might have been a little inappropriate. Have you seen the photo?
Yes.
But you know what? Like, my girlfriend was coming home from dinner from school, and I was making dinner, and I was like, you know what? What would be a way that I could show up in this moment when she comes in the door that's going to create this vision that I have for our relationship? And that's sexiness. Even though, you know, I'm self-conscious about my body a little bit, you know, I'm not quite in the shape that I'd like to be and all these things. I had to own it, you know. It's like, you know what, this is the type of relationship I want to have with her. And so she came in and she thought it was hysterical, so she took a picture. I was like, you should put that on Facebook. And she did, and I was like, oh no, take it off. And I'm like, you know what? No. Because that's what I did all of that for her out of service. And I'm going to own it. You know, I'm not going to shy away from it. Because whether it's somebody might not think it's appropriate for Facebook, but that's something I did for her. And I'm not ashamed of that. So I'm not going to apologize for doing something that helps me with my vision for the relationship that I want to have with my partner.
You did rock the dad bod, Chris, I will say that.
Now I have to go see this.
Yeah, you'll. So at that retreat that I was on, one of the exercises was I had to come dressed as a male stripper in costume. So I went and got...
That was an exercise?
Huh?
That was an exercise?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's stepping out of your comfort zone.
And you pay to go to this conference, or they pay you?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's how Chris made the money, was being a stripper.
He earned it.
Yeah, it's like owning your sexiness, owning they call it your nerd, you know, and you know, it's all the things that make me who I am that it's my nerd, you know, that's me.
Hey, Chris, can I add one thing? You just struck me while you were talking about it, and see what you guys think. You know, sometimes we think, and I know I always default into this, and anytime you default is enough of the awareness to say, wow, I just fell back into doing what I always do instead of stopping and noticing it. But visions don't have to be this big, gigantic, here's what I want for life. And some of the wisest thing I ever heard was from this utterly terrific guy named Tom Morris, who has some amazing books. He's just got a new series of books coming out as well. He's this practical philosopher. And though he's got all the wisdom of the ancients, because he was a Notre Dame professor for years and worked in the boardrooms of all the big Fortune 100 companies, he said the wisest thing he ever heard was from his dad, who said, you don't need to know what you want to be for life, you just need to know what you want to do next. And the power of the next. So we've been calling it nexting. You know, what are the things you're going to do next? So I wonder if vision could be, you know, that all you need to do sometimes to get comfortable with a vision. For Dad that doesn't do vision normally, just say, what do I want to have happen with this kid next? Well, my vision is that I don't, like Thomas, like what you said, you know, I don't go and I just talk about, you know, what's not right at school. Did you getting your grades up? Are you doing the homework? Is there any note I need to sign tonight? But I have a vision that this kid and I are going to have a much better relationship. What could I do to be part of that? Could be a vision. And it could be just in the next 10 minutes. I just need to do what's next in the next 10 minutes. And then I don't need to let the big version, I can go with the big version of vision too if I want, but I don't have to. And I wondered how that might strike people if we have lots of little visions, you know, to get comfortable building a bigger vision. Could I even do this? Could I really be a much more relaxed dad that's more interested in who my kid is instead of who I need them to be? And maybe that's too big for me to say my kid will go to college, it's my vision, or this college. But if I see over time that doesn't make any sense for the kid, could I have a vision that says what I want most is this kid to be happy and responsible? How do I change my vision, but how do I do it in pieces instead of too big of a piece? So I just wanted to throw it out there and see what you guys think.
It's like kind of like what are this? How can I help him find those steps to that overall happiness, and whether or not that involves college or doesn't involve college? Is that?
Well, yeah, I mean that's just an example. But the idea was, how do I take the big vision and make it? I just have a vision for the next 10 minutes. I have a vision for today between now and noon.
Right.
Here's what I want to. Here's how I want to show up to something. And look, I got it. I did it. I'm good. Or wow, it didn't work so well. Let me cut it into smaller pieces. I'm not good with a bigger one yet. And then maybe that gives us the freedom to test it, because it may not be what we do now.
Right. You know, like you could say to yourself, you know, instead of I have this big vision for who my kid is supposed to be, I want to be my kid's advocate.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
And try to recenter on that. So if he comes to me and says, you know, I don't want to go to college, I want to start a business. Okay, let's talk about how that might work. You know,
How can I support you in that?
I'd like to support you in launching a new business. Now, you know, maybe it's half-cocked. Maybe he doesn't have a business plan yet, maybe whatever. But at least you can go through the steps with him of, well, okay, if this is what you want to do, here are the steps that you would need to take, and I can help you with those steps.
I love that, Thomas. That's a great, that makes a lot of sense. Because
and, I mean, Jay, I was just thinking when back to school just happened, there was this sort of meme or this post that landed on Facebook that gave these 30 better questions to ask than like, did you have a good day at school? You know, that were more open-ended questions that were just, you know, like, what was your favorite thing? Or who was the person that gave you the most resistance? Or, you know, did you make any enemies today? Or, like, you know, silly, you know, questions that you wouldn't normally think would be as engaging as they are. But because of their surprise, like, hardly anyone asks that question, value, they are just more engaging, and so I feel like that's another part of being present, is just, you know, setting an intention for the next moment. And I mean, and I've been kind of channeling a lot of Wayne Dyer of late, and you know, I mean, he went through so much stuff that would, you know, his early life and the chaos that he experienced, but he never experienced it as chaos, you know. So like, he was always present. He always knew that he had a vision, and he never let any circumstance get in the way of the next step. And I think that's what, you know, that's what really amazes me about his walk, and having these leaders, you know, these people who came before us and who blazed the trail that we can reblaze, we can add our fire to, and so, like, you know, when it comes to parenting, you know, again, as modern dads, there's so much more than just showing up as the provider, you know, that other generations, you know, that was their job description, and that was how you did parenting well. Like, you were a dad, your job was to make as much money as possible and to be as invisible in the rest of the process as possible. and that's the best dad ever. And now, like, that whole rigmarole has changed, you know, and so the sky's the limit. You know, we can be our kids' business partners. We could be the lead investor in our kids' new vision, and it doesn't have to be 4 years of school. And if we take our value orientation away from it and say, wow, will it look like I failed as a dad if my kids don't go to school? You know, I might look at it the other way. Like, I might look at it as I failed as a dad if my kids do go to school. So it's a very interesting time.
Given some of the stuff that they're teaching and doing in school, I hear you with that. But, you know, so picking up on that, Eric, I mean, it used to be you were the 2-week dad. You know, you took the kids on the vacation, and that was when you saw them. And that was when you spent time with them, and that was it. So now we want to be the 52-week dad. We want to be there all the time. And try putting yourself in your kid's shoes. I mean, like when you come home from work, do you want somebody to ask you, hey, did you turn in that project that your boss was asking? That's the last thing you want to hear. It's like, well, of course I finished my work, or whatever it is. So we have this mindset, or this vision that kids need to be treated differently from adults, that they need to be handled in some different way, and there's truth in that. But as they start to grow up, they really want to be treated more like adults and treated as being responsible, and not have us come to them immediately with the assumption that they screwed something up.
Yeah, and then they don't have to be 18 years old for that conversation, right? I mean,
Right.
that could start at 6 years old.
Right.
Just the words, the language that you might use would be a little bit different because they're not going to quite understand, it all. But really, it's that process, and then being that model for, that's the big thing for me. Is my son's 14, and this is the development stages in his life, and I can tell him all I want, but if I'm not living it and I'm not showing up and I'm not going through that process myself, how can I expect him to? And I think that's where, when I look at society, that's where I see a kind of a disconnect. Is like we keep telling our kids, even though, you need to do this and you need to do that, as we go and we do these other things. And they're kind of confused. They see inauthenticity
Right.
in what you're saying and what you're doing. So, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm getting another call.
Eric, what are you eating? Why aren't you sharing?
There
Yes.
we go.
Right? I will share all my virtual spaghetti with you.
Dangle it over the phone. So sorry, I lost. Go ahead.
I think it's going to come to that technologically. Just I think someday we will be able to share a meal together. But I think in all seriousness is that we, as much as my heart warmed when I thought of the idea of a 52-week dad. I'm in a half shared parenting situation, and so I'm a 26-week dad at best in a way, with these weird kind of intermittent times where I get a week at a time here and there, but mostly it's 3.5 days at a time. So I feel like one of the other ways to what I tend to say is I'm a full-time dad with a half-time schedule, and I think what's really interesting now is that I'm excited about those 3.5 days that I get, and I'm excited about the questions I get to ask. Not necessarily that, I've never taken on the responsibility of making sure that all the permission slips get signed. That's pretty much been my kid's mom's responsibility. But I've taken on, do you feel loved today? Do you feel like your dreams are still intact? Do you feel like that you can do anything you want to do? And do you feel like you've got all the skills or the tools in order to be able to do them? And those are the kinds of questions that I'm excited about asking. So, I don't know. I feel like just in terms of vision, in this post-industrial world, we have so many options, and the jobs that our kids are going to take on, if the word job is still valid, we're not going to know what's available, 10, 15 years from now, so we just, I guess getting, kind of coming back to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, I believe that they actually know more than we think that they do, because they're really connected with Source in a more recently than we are. So I think that's the other part of our job description is to back away all of our stories and all of our programming that has us bias their dreams, too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even this word business plan, I mean, there are so many books that say, don't write a business plan. They're just projections. They're just, made up numbers that mean nothing, Just do the next thing and, build your team and find your tribe, and do it in community. So, people spend, 6 months on writing a business plan that, the world changes by the time the business plan is, edited.
Right.
So, there's so many different ways to look at vision. So, I don't know. That's just where my heart's at.
Thank you, Eric. We're getting kind of close to the end of the hour, so we're going to be wrapping it up. But I did want to open up the floor for everybody to have one last chance to talk on the subject. Does anybody else have a last point that they want to make? Or something they're really feeling?
Something Eric said struck me that, regardless of the type of dad that you are, that we are, we're there all the time, we're not all there all the time. The vision is, how do I show up as the best dad I can be without regard to the situations that, are thrown on me? I can be really disappointed that I only get to see my kids half-time, or I could have a vision that when I'm with my kids, it's a really amazing thing. And so I guess the final thought that I have is, as we collectively look at vision, how are we just really truly focusing in on the thing that matters most to the way that we show up as a parent, as a dad? And that the stories about how it's all supposed to be, that you can feel bad that I only get you half-time. I remember one of the lines that my youngest daughter used to say as I'd go over and pick her up, and I had about an hour's ride to go get her. And she would say when she gets in the car, when she got in the car, she's old now, but she was just little then, she would say, when I'm with you, I want to be with Mom. When I'm with Mom, I want to be with you. And so the vision is we should all be together, otherwise this kid's not happy. Or if that's the reality, is that these parents are not together, and that's a lot of our cases, then what vision do we have instead? And how do we not look at the negative, what's missing in this, but the vision then highlights what's positive in it? And I think with that we could start to reframe, no matter what life sends us, that we'll create a vision out of it that does in fact take the best of what's here. And to me, I find that really engaging and really encouraging as a parent, that I don't have to see what I'm missing or making my kids miss out on, but I rather can reframe my vision so how I respond and relate to them is very different based on the way I choose to show up to them when I do get the luxury of having them.
I love that. And in authenticity, too, because oftentimes we show up as what we think we are supposed to be as a parent and not who we are as true individuals and being true to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's, vision can be kind of a tool to measure, where you are. Like we were talking about before, right? You set your goal and you look at where you're at and say, how in line am I with my vision, and how authentic is my vision to who I am? If you're really struggling, really just can't seem to live your vision, then is your vision truly
yours?
You, yeah. Or is it what everybody's been telling you that you should be, and so your vision has then become everybody else's voice instead of your own? And that's where at the beginning of the conversation I was talking about, you kind of blaze your own trail, but what you find is when you're on your own trail, you're like, wait, there's a whole bunch of us going the same exact way, and that's when you find your community. Instead, and it brings me to, real quick, to bring in the political stuff that we're seeing in the media and stuff today. I really loved, in the 2008 election, Ron Paul. He was running for the Republican Party. And I don't want to get too into politics with this, but I really loved everything that he said. And I went and I looked at what he ran on back in 1988, So 10 years previous, or I'm sorry, 20 years prior, and he was saying the exact same thing. He had been running on the exact same stuff. He was not flip-flopping or anything, and the media just ripped on him. So I talked to my stepdad, who is a Republican, and I was like, so do you think you'll vote for Ron Paul in the Republican primaries? He's like, oh, he has no chance of winning, so I'm not going to vote for him. And it's like, if everybody has that mentality that, you're voting for the winner, then it's like, how are you being true to your vision for what you want to see created in the world? If you're going based on what the masses are doing and not based on what your heart's telling you should do, or what your brain's telling you, what you yourself are feeling, then you're not being true to your own vision. So it's important to realize, or I guess to notice that, Jay, to go back into your coaching.
Stop and notice, yep.
Yeah, stop and notice where the voices are coming from. And is it true to what you are, who you are, or is it something that you've been told, or that you're trying to, go with what you think is popular? So, anybody else have a last comment or wrap up? Because if not, we're right on the hour. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today. This has been the Modern Dad Council, and we discussed vision. And thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.